Something shocking has just been revealed. Your soulmate has finally discovered who was working against this connection behind the scenes. And the truth is not what they expected. For a long time, your soulmate believed the distance between you happened because of fear, timing, and misunderstandings. They blamed themselves. They blamed the situation. Sometimes, they even blamed you. They thought perhaps you stopped caring. They thought perhaps you had chosen to move on. They thought your silence was a clear answer. But now they know that someone was standing between both of you. Someone was watching the connection closely. Someone was passing information. Someone was changing the meaning of your words before they could reach your soulmate. And this person was much closer than either of you realized. My child, pause for a second. Think about how many times the connection almost moved forward. There were moments when your soulmate wanted to speak honestly. There were moments when you felt ready to listen. There were moments when both of you were emotionally standing at the same door. But every time, something happened. A sudden misunderstanding. A strange message. A warning from someone you trusted. A change in behavior that made no sense. Your soulmate used to believe these interruptions were coincidences. They no longer believe that. The truth began to appear when your soulmate found an old conversation saved on another device. They were searching for something completely different. Perhaps a photograph. Perhaps a document. Perhaps a message connected to work or family. Then they saw your name. Not inside their own conversation with you. Inside someone else's messages. Your soulmate stopped immediately. The conversation was between two people they trusted. One person was close to them. The other person was close to you. At first, the messages looked ordinary. They were discussing your connection as if they were only concerned. They said both of you were becoming too emotionally involved. They said the situation was complicated. They said keeping some distance might be better for everyone. But then your soulmate continued reading. And the tone changed. One message said, "Make sure they believe the silence is their choice." Your soulmate read that sentence again. Their heart began beating faster. Then they saw another message. Do not give them the full truth. If they compare stories, everything will come out. That was the moment your soulmate understood. The distance was not only created by fear. It was being managed. Someone wanted both of you to believe you were making independent decisions. But behind the scenes, information was being controlled. Your soulmate began reading every message carefully. The conversation went back months. Every important moment between you appeared inside it. The day you stopped reaching out. The day your soulmate almost confessed. The day someone told you that your soulmate was interested in another person. The day your soulmate was told that you had laughed about the connection and called it meaningless. Everything had been discussed. Everything had been planned. My child, pause for a second. The person working against this connection knew both of your emotional weaknesses. They knew your soulmate was afraid of rejection. They knew you were tired of uncertainty. So they created two different stories. To your soulmate, they said you had moved on. To you, they said your soulmate would never choose you. To your soulmate, they said you were emotionally unpredictable. To you, they said your soulmate was only enjoying your attention. Each story was designed to make one person step back. And whenever one of you stepped back, the reaction was used as proof. Your silence became proof that you no longer cared. Your soulmate's distance became proof that they were never serious. The person did not need to create one enormous lie. They only needed to keep both of you from speaking directly. Your soulmate felt physically sick while reading the messages. They remembered all the times they believed outside advice. They remembered the person telling them not to contact you. They remembered hearing that you had already made your decision. They remembered how foolish they felt for still caring. Now they realized those feelings had been created intentionally. But the biggest shock was still hidden. Your soulmate believed the person interfering was someone who disliked you. Someone jealous. Someone who wanted your soulmate for themselves. But the messages revealed something else. The person working against the connection was someone who had often defended you. Someone who had spoken kindly about you. Someone who told your soulmate that you deserved happiness. That kindness was part of the disguise. This person did not appear like an enemy. They appeared like a mediator. They acted as though they wanted peace. They offered advice. They listened to both sides. They became the person everyone trusted. And because they were trusted, no one questioned how much information they controlled. Your soulmate continued searching. They found deleted screenshots, voice notes, private conversations. Then they discovered that the person had access to one of their accounts. Months ago, your soulmate wrote you a confession. They had finally admitted the truth. They told you they loved you. They explained that fear had caused their distance. They asked you to meet. You never responded. Your soulmate believed you rejected them. But now they found proof that the confession was opened from another device and removed before you saw it. The person behind the scenes had deleted it. Your soulmate stared at the activity record. The time. The location. The device. Everything matched. They had not imagined it. The message never reached you. My child, pause for a second. There was also a message from you. A message your soulmate never saw. You had written during one of the most painful moments of silence. You said you cared. You said you were confused. You asked whether the connection meant anything. You explained that you could accept an honest ending, but you could not continue living inside uncertainty. That message was deleted too. Both of you had reached out. Both of you had chosen honesty. And someone removed the evidence before either heart could receive it. Your soulmate broke down. They thought about all the lost time. They thought about how you may have believed you were ignored. They thought about how they believed you had rejected their confession. They realized both of you had been grieving a conversation that was never allowed to happen. Then anger replaced the tears. Your soulmate confronted the person immediately. They did not wait. They did not send a warning. They walked directly into the room and placed the evidence in front of them. At first, the person denied everything. They said the messages were being misunderstood. They claimed they opened the account accidentally. They said deleting the conversations was only an attempt to protect your soulmate from emotional pain. But your soulmate was no longer willing to accept vague answers. They asked one direct question. Why were you so afraid of us speaking to each other? The person became silent. Your soulmate asked again. Why did you need both of us to believe the other person had chosen distance? Still no answer. Then your soulmate showed them the conversation between the two people. The message that said, if they compare stories, everything will come out. The person's face changed. They knew the secret was no longer protected. They asked your soulmate where the messages had been found. Your soulmate said that did not matter. The only thing that mattered was the truth. Finally, the person admitted interfering. They said they deleted the messages. They said they passed false information. They said they encouraged both of you to move on. But they insisted it was not because they hated the connection. They claimed they were protecting both families. That explanation confused your soulmate. What did the families have to do with this? The person said your connection was connected to an old conflict. Something that happened years before either of you understood what was going on. They said if you and your soulmate became close, certain questions would be asked. Old photographs would appear. Old documents would be opened. And people who had spent years protecting a particular story would lose control. My child, pause for a second. Your soulmate asked what story they were protecting. The person refused to explain fully. But they admitted the two families had once shared something valuable. Property. Money. A business agreement. Perhaps an inheritance. Something disappeared. Each family blamed the other. The conflict created years of anger. But the person now believed the original story was false. Neither family may have caused the loss. A third party may have taken what belonged to both sides. And the person working against your connection was connected to that third party. Your soulmate felt the room spinning. The manipulation between you was not only about love. It was about preventing two families from comparing information. The person believed that if you and your soulmate trusted each other, you would naturally begin sharing memories and asking questions. The same method used years ago to divide the families had been used again. Separate the people. Control the information. Tell each side a different story. Allow silence to create resentment. Your soulmate demanded proof. The person said the proof had been hidden. Some documents were destroyed. Others were placed somewhere no one would search. But one photograph still existed. A photograph of you and your soulmate from years before you believed you first met. The person had seen it. They knew both of you were at the same family gathering. They knew an object was exchanged. And they knew the gathering ended after an argument connected to the old conflict. Your soulmate asked where the photograph was. The person said it was gone. But your soulmate had already found it. They removed the image from a folder and placed it on the table. The person became pale. The photograph showed you. It showed your soulmate. And behind both of you stood the person who had been working against the connection. You were younger. You were standing close together. Your soulmate was placing a small object in your hand. And written on the back of the photograph were the words. They must never remember why they were brought together. Your soulmate asked what the object was. The person finally revealed that it was a token. One of two matching pieces. The tokens were connected to the old agreement between the families. When placed together, they revealed where the original records had been hidden. One token remained with your soulmate's family. The other was given to you during the gathering. If both pieces were ever reunited, the truth about the missing property or money could be exposed. That was why the connection had to be stopped. Not because you and your soulmate were wrong for each other. Because together, you threatened a secret. Your soulmate asked whether the person had stolen the messages to protect their own family. They said yes. They believed the truth would destroy the reputation of people they loved. They believed keeping both of you apart was the easiest solution. Your soulmate became furious. They said love was not an excuse for control. Protection was not an excuse for manipulation. No one had the right to steal years from two people simply because the truth felt inconvenient. The person tried to defend themselves. They said your soulmate did not understand how serious the consequences could be. They said people could lose homes, money, status, relationships. They said revealing the truth would reopen wounds that had finally become quiet. Your soulmate replied that the wounds were never healed. They were only hidden. And hidden wounds had now harmed another generation. My child, pause for a second. Your soulmate did not leave the confrontation with every answer. But they left with something more important. Clarity. They finally knew who had been working behind the scenes. They knew how the messages disappeared. They knew why both of you were given different stories. And they knew the person was not acting alone. Someone from your side had also been sharing information. Someone close to you knew about the old family conflict. Someone knew when you planned to contact your soulmate. Someone helped make sure the messages were intercepted. Before your soulmate could ask for the second name, the person received a notification. They looked at the phone and tried to hide the screen. Your soulmate took a photograph before it disappeared. The message said, "They found out. Get the token before they contact each other." Your soulmate saved the image. Then they left. They knew the next step was not another confrontation. The next step was you. For the first time, they needed to tell you everything directly. No advisor. No friend. No person standing between the two stories. Your soulmate is now preparing a message. It begins with an apology. They want to admit that someone manipulated the connection. But they also want to take responsibility. Because the lies only worked because your soulmate allowed fear to replace communication. They should have asked you directly. They should have trusted what they experienced with you. They should have refused to believe another person's version of your heart. They understand that now. They are not expecting immediate forgiveness. They only want you to see the proof. The deleted messages. The secret conversation. The photograph. The warning about the token. They want you to know that you were not imagining the connection. You were not foolish for believing something deeper existed. They did care. They did reach out. And someone made sure neither of you received the truth. But before your soulmate presses send, another message arrives. This one comes from an unknown number. It contains a photograph of the second token. The matching piece from your soulmate's family. Someone is holding it. Below the image are the words. Stay away from them, or both families will learn what you did that day. Your soulmate does not remember doing anything wrong. They barely remember the gathering. But the message suggests there is another secret. Something connected directly to them. Something that may be used to frighten them back into silence. For a moment, the old fear returns. Then your soulmate looks at your name. They remember the months lost because of hidden truth. They remember the pain caused by allowing another person to control the story. And they make a decision. They press send. The message is moving toward you now. It says, I know who was working against us. I have proof. Please speak to me before they hide everything again. When you receive it, something inside you will recognize the seriousness immediately. Because this is not only a confession of love. It is an invitation to uncover the truth. Your soulmate has discovered the person behind the scenes. But that person was only one part of the plan. Someone close to you has been helping them. Someone who already knows where your token is hidden. Someone who may be moving toward it right now. My child, pause for a second. Your soulmate is finally ready to stand beside you. They are ready to face their mistakes. They are ready to expose the manipulation. And they are ready to discover why two families were so afraid of this connection becoming real. But the moment you open their message, the person working against you will know the silence has ended. And when the second name is finally revealed, you may discover that the deepest betrayal did not come from your soulmate's side. It came from someone who has been standing beside you, pretending to protect your heart, from the very beginning. Your soulmate pressed send. For the first time in months, there was no hesitation. No deleted message. No trusted friend reading the words before you could. No one standing between two hearts that had already lost too much time. The message reached you exactly as it was written. I know who was working against us. I have proof. Please speak to me before they hide everything again. You stared at the screen. 1,000 emotions rushed through you at once. Part of you wanted to answer immediately. Another part wanted to protect yourself from more disappointment. Because even if someone had manipulated the connection, the pain you experienced was still real. The unanswered nights were real. The confusion was real. The tears were real. You took a deep breath and replied with only 3 words. Show me everything. The typing indicator appeared almost instantly. Your soulmate had been waiting. Within seconds, several files arrived. Screenshots. Voice recordings. Photographs. And one document with a title that made your heart skip a beat. Private conversation, do not forward. My child, pause for a second. Sometimes the truth does not arrive in one dramatic moment. It arrives piece by piece. One screenshot. One forgotten memory. One sentence that suddenly explains years of confusion. That is exactly what was happening now. You opened the document. The first page contained messages between the person who had been manipulating your connection and another individual whose name had been hidden. The conversation began almost casually. "They are getting closer than expected." The reply came a minute later. "Then slow them down." Your stomach tightened. You kept reading. The next message said, "If they ever compare what each of them has been told, we lose control." Your soulmate called you. Neither of you spoke while reading. There was no need. The evidence was speaking for itself. Then your soulmate whispered something. "Look at page 4. You scrolled down. Your hands froze. There was a list. Dates. Each date matched an important moment in your connection. The day your soulmate almost confessed. The day you stopped replying regularly. The day you removed a photograph from your profile. The day your soulmate canceled plans to meet you. Every important emotional moment had been recorded. Beside each date was a short note. Spoke to them today. They believe the silence is permanent. No further action needed. My child, pause for a second. This was no longer simple interference. Someone had been observing the emotional progress of your relationship. Someone had been making decisions based on how close you and your soulmate were becoming. Your soulmate's voice became heavier. They admitted they recognized some of the dates immediately. One note matched the exact afternoon when they suddenly decided not to answer your message. Until now, they believed it had been their own decision. But the record showed they had met the person manipulating everything only 20 minutes before. That conversation changed everything. Your soulmate tried to remember what happened that afternoon. Slowly, pieces returned. The person had invited them for coffee. They acted concerned. They said they had spoken to you recently. They claimed you were emotionally exhausted. They claimed you said you needed space. Your soulmate believed them. Instead of asking you directly, they quietly stepped back. And now they realized that conversation had been planned. You continued reading. Halfway through the document, another name appeared. Not hidden. Completely visible. Your breathing stopped. You recognized it immediately. It was not someone from your soulmate's family. It was someone from yours. Someone who had been part of your life for years. Someone who comforted you after every misunderstanding. Someone who repeatedly told you that your soulmate was too emotionally unavailable to build a future with. You whispered their name. Your soulmate heard it. Neither of you could believe it. The second person had been helping all along. My child, pause for a second. Betrayal hurts differently when it comes from someone you trusted enough to protect your heart. You expect lies from strangers. You never expect them from people who wipe away your tears while secretly creating them. Your soulmate asked whether you wanted to stop reading. You answered immediately. No. Not anymore. No more half-truths. No more protecting people who never protected us. You reached the final pages. There was a voice recording. Your soulmate had already listened to it. They warned you it would be difficult to hear. You pressed play. Two voices filled the room. The first belonged to the person from your soulmate's side. The second belonged to the person from yours. One of them laughed softly. As long as they never speak honestly, they'll eventually blame each other. The other replied. Fear does the rest of the work for us. Silence. Then another sentence. We don't have to break the connection. We only have to delay it long enough. Your eyes filled with tears. Those words explained everything. No dramatic lies. No impossible schemes. Just carefully timed doubt. Small delays. Small misunderstandings. Small moments of hesitation. Enough to keep two people apart. Your soulmate apologized again. Not because they caused the recording. Because they had allowed fear to become stronger than trust. They admitted something painful. There were moments when they doubted you without asking questions. Moments when they chose assumptions instead of communication. They wanted you to know that they regretted every one of them. You appreciated their honesty. Because true healing does not begin when people pretend they made no mistakes. It begins when they stop hiding behind excuses. Then your soulmate said something unexpected. There is one file I haven't opened yet. You asked why. They explained it had arrived only minutes before they contacted you. The file was password protected. The sender left one sentence. Open this together. Neither of you knew who sent it. The email address was anonymous. There were no clues. Only the encrypted file. My child, pause for a second. Sometimes life gives you one final piece of evidence exactly when you are ready to handle it. Not before. Not after. Your soulmate suggested waiting until you met in person. You agreed. Some truths deserve to be opened together. Then another notification interrupted the conversation. This time it came from the person who had manipulated everything. The message contained only one sentence. Please don't destroy two families because of old mistakes. Your soulmate looked at the screen for several seconds. Then they replied with something simple. The truth doesn't destroy families. Lies do. After sending it, they blocked the number. For the first time, they were no longer afraid. Not because the situation had become easier. Because they had stopped allowing fear to make decisions for them. The next morning, you finally met. Months of silence disappeared the moment your eyes met. Neither of you rushed forward. Neither of you pretended nothing had happened. You simply stood there, taking in the reality that both of you had survived the same manipulation from opposite sides. Your soulmate handed you printed copies of every screenshot. You brought the old photograph. Together, you placed everything across the table. Dates. Messages. Voice recordings. Photographs. Every piece fit together with frightening accuracy. Then your soulmate placed a small envelope beside the documents. I found this after we spoke last night. You opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter. The handwriting belonged to an elderly relative. The letter had never been posted. It was addressed to both of you. Not individually. Together. It began. If you are reading this, then the truth stayed hidden much longer than we hoped. You exchanged surprised looks. The letter continued. Years ago, mistakes were made by many adults. Pride became stronger than honesty. Instead of allowing the younger generation to create peace, people chose to protect their own versions of the past. If your paths cross again naturally, please listen to each other before listening to anyone else. Those words struck your heart deeply. Because that was exactly what neither of you had done. Not intentionally. But fear had made outside voices sound more trustworthy than your own experiences. The letter ended with one final instruction. Inside the sealed file is the complete story. Only open it after you have forgiven yourselves for believing the lies. You looked at your soulmate. Neither of you moved toward the encrypted file. Not yet. Your soulmate smiled sadly. Maybe that's why it has a password. Maybe the password isn't numbers. Maybe it's trust. My child, pause for a second. The greatest discovery your soulmate made was not the identity of the people working against your connection. It was discovering how easily fear can silence two honest hearts. The manipulation only succeeded because neither of you believed you deserved direct answers. That changes today. Your soulmate reached across the table. Not to force your hand. Not to demand forgiveness. Only to ask one quiet question. Can we promise each other something? You nodded. From now on, if either of us is confused, we ask each other first. No assumptions. No third person. No silent suffering. Only honesty. You agreed. It felt like the first real beginning either of you had experienced. Then your soulmate remembered the encrypted file. They opened the laptop. The file asked for a password. Both of you tried birthdays. Nothing. Important dates. Nothing. Family names. Nothing. You were about to close it when your soulmate suddenly remembered the final sentence in the handwritten letter. Listen to each other before listening to anyone else. Almost without thinking, they typed one word. Trust. The screen unlocked. Both of you stared in disbelief. Inside the folder was a single video. The recording began years earlier. An elderly man looked directly into the camera. He spoke your name. Then your soulmate's. He smiled sadly before saying, "If you're watching this together, then you succeeded where we failed." The video ended after only 10 seconds. Not because it was finished. Because the rest of the recording had been deliberately removed. Someone had edited it. The remaining footage was missing. Only one clue remained. A note attached beneath the video. The complete recording still exists. The person who erased it is coming to your meeting place today. Your soulmate slowly looked toward the cafe window. A familiar figure had just stepped out of a car. The same person who spent months convincing both of you to give up. But this time, they were not alone. Walking beside them was someone neither of you had ever seen before. And in their hands was the missing original recording that could reveal everything they had worked so hard to keep hidden.